There's your lovely face.
There we are.
All right. Okie dokie. All right. Hello, good people. Live from the bunker. Well, trying to survive all this stuff. We got to turn our volumes down so we don't have a reverb and blow everybody's eardrums out. All right. Get our geese fixed. Get ready to rock here. I may have to adjust some camera angles here. Yep, I'm cutting my head off on YouTube. We got to change that.
Which one?
All right. That's the fancy jigama, whatever.
Jigamahoo?
What? Yeah, whatever that thing is. I forget what it's called. The DJI Osmo.
Is that good?
Merch link in the description. I think that's good. All right. Matt's a little cold today.
Yeah.
But Mandy's got her coffee and we're ready to rock.
Magical wizard mug.
Magical wizard mug. Yeah. Yeah, the place that makes really great beer, but not so great coffee. Well, it's probably good.
4
for
mugs. My
yeah,
mug's
the
falling
mug.
apart.
Who farted right around the corner from us is like 2 miles. It's a great place. Now the whole world knows a 2 mile radius of where we live now. And find a bunker. Anyway, hope everybody's doing good, staying happy and healthy, and yeah, we're gonna get started today. Actually, if you guys have any questions, I can't remember. There was one question at the end of the last one on Thursday that we
missed somebody's. Yeah.
I forget, but I'm gonna start with kind of what we what we went over with the juniors class. One of my favorite escapes from side control, basically because I'm lazy, is I like the opponent to make the space, right? And so you can definitely, I don't want to say force, but you can be proactive, and there's definitely a lot of escapes that you can be direct with, I should say. As long as your technique is right and you're not expending more energy than the person on the top. That's the tricky thing about being stuck on side control on the bottom is, obviously being able to stay safe, knowing when to escape, having the right technique that doesn't expend so much energy that you're exhausted once you get out, or you try to escape and they shut it down and then now you're exhausted. So a lot of times if the person's just holding us, they're not always hurting us, right? That was one of the most valuable lessons that I learned early on, from Helson, was like, man, if the guy's just holding you, that's not the time to escape. The time to escape is when he's trying to attack. He's going to open up opportunities for you to escape then. So one of my favorite escapes is what we call the backdoor escape, okay? Not to be confused with the breech berth escape, which we covered, I think, in the last video. But it basically looks like this. If somebody's in side control, maybe I should do it this way. Let's turn this direction. Yeah, there we go. Okay? They're in side control. I have my defense here, so if you can sit up just for a second. So I have this blocking the easy access. Easy access meaning it's not easy for her, it's going to be, if my legs are down, it's easier for her to just slide the knee across. So if I make this difficult, I take away her easy access to the mount position or knee on the belly, which a lot of times is going to force them to sit. If they want the mount position, it's going to force them to switch their hips and face my legs to high step over it. Now, here's the deal. When they switch their hips like this, I'm going to know if they have a good base or not, just by looking over here, okay? I have my defense here. I can feel what's going on. I may not be able to see what's going on down here with my legs, but I can feel if she has a hold of my legs, or whatever. But if I can't see that foot, if I can't see that foot, I know she doesn't have a very good base. So very simply, all I have to do here is bridge here and come up on top. Now, if she steps back to catch her base, that may be my best opportunity for me to shrimp crawl and put her in the guard, okay? So that's first, is recognizing if and when they are off balance, how to take advantage of that, all right? So that would be a good time to make a bridge, an elbow escape. Now, if they do have a good base, I see them here, she's got my hips blocked, I wait on the moment when she commits to the escape. So when she goes over top and she starts to escape, I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna escape out the back door. So as the hips come over top to the other side, I escape, I trap. You have a shot at taking their back here, okay? But most of the time, 90% of the time, they're gonna turn to face you. You move, turn, and then you put them back in the guard here. So it's very simple. As they start, what she wants to do is high step and land her foot here to block my hip from running. So when I see her start to go, I can't wait too long. I don't want her to settle into the mount. So there's that moment of opportunity when they're transitioning from one position to the next. Before they've solidified that mount and locked you down, that's your moment of opportunity. That's when you're gonna wanna move, okay? So movement is creating movement. So as she starts to go, remember the knee is here. It should be anyway. So when she steps over top, I'm moving away, taking that target further away from her and splitting her legs open. So once I'm here, I escape that back leg, turn, trap the leg, turn to this side, frame, move, put them back on the guard. Now, another one, which I really like this one a lot, is when they start to beat this, okay? They start to push this down and they want to step over top, okay? So another option for you here is this. When they switch the hips and she goes to high step over top, I switch and I make this connection. So when she lands here like this, so if you can hop up just for a second. So I'm go from here, as soon as I see that leg start to swing, I switch and I make the frame here, okay? So when I switch, everything's blocked here. So she's gonna land somewhere, okay? If she lands up here, that's probably not very likely, but I can feed it down and I can catch her leg. If it just lands here, what happens a lot of times is they'll either try to stay over top of you and try to push this leg down and try to clear it, or they'll try to hold this leg and backstep, okay? So what we've got to do, as soon as we feel that land, I'm lifting already. So even if she starts to pull the leg back, so we're here, she goes to step high, boom, I catch it, I got to be sticky with this leg. So if she tries to swing it back to catch her base, I catch it and I come up here, okay? So I'm catching her leg and I'm hitching a ride. The bottom leg is doing this. I'm digging into the floor and lifting up. Let's turn this direction. So we're here, she switches, she comes over top, I catch it. Now this hand is gonna chop this knee out, okay? I don't want her to be able to switch her hips. So I'm gonna lift here. Now I'm gonna come up, now you gotta watch out for the sneaky wife who likes to shoot her hips back and catch me in guillotines right there. So that you gotta watch. Let me give her her good side. You can have her good side. There we go. So there's some options. What's up, Bergie? There's some options for escaping side control when they try to transition into the mount. And the backdoor escape, that first one we did, you can do that even if they try to knee slide. You just have to wait till they're committed and they're further across. So some of the easiest ways to defend and escape side control there, honestly. So, all right. Thanks for these videos. You are welcome. Jam 19. Thanks, buddy. All right. Old School BJJ YouTube channels or Old School closed guard attacks. So, honestly, as far as YouTube channels go, I really don't know. As far as Old School BJJ, there's a lot of videos out there, and you know, one interesting thing about you know what's happening is you know, since if you like teaching jiu-jitsu, the only way you're able to do it right now is online. You know what I mean? So there are a great deal of you know, a lot of the old school guys. When I say old school, I'm talking guys that, you know, obviously like the generation before me, Helson, Horan, guys like that. Many of them really, you know, especially when I first started, most schools really kind of held, I don't want to say held back. They didn't hold back from their students. Helson never held anything back from us. That was just not in his DNA. Like he wanted his students to be as best as they possibly could, so he poured all his, he threw it out there. I mean, he gave everybody, it was up to us to train and to repeat the moves, but he never held anything back, and it was like a computer. Like, you ask him a question, he would have an answer, and it was almost always the simplest possible and most effective answer. But he would, you know, like, I think that old school mentality was people really held that information to their own students. They held it back. You know, a lot of schools didn't like outsiders coming in. The cross training was just, the mentality was not the same. You know, they'd still be friendly, but you know, it was just not. It was very territorial. You know, I mean, everybody wanted to hold on to the technique and not share with everybody else. But now you see a big change. You know, like people, even Hickson, who never. I think was really pushed a long time from a lot of people to find, you know, like, look, man, you know, your contribution to this art is so massive. Please get this stuff out there, just for posterity's sake. Is that the right term? I think it is. I hope I used it correctly. Just to have that legacy, to keep the knowledge out there, kind of like Gracie in his book that I shared the other day. You know, so that little by little that mentality is changing, and what we're seeing now, a lot of these masters are sharing techniques online, and it's awesome. Like when I start paying attention to people like Marcel Stambowski, who's, you know, sharing techniques on YouTube or Facebook, I'm like, man, this is great. Like, you'd have to go to his school or whatever and train with him, but now he's throwing it out there for you know, all the public to see. And man, you know, another guy I like, who I really enjoy watching, I follow him on Facebook, is Mauricio Gomez, Haja Gracie's dad. He's just funny. I mean, beyond his ability, you know, obviously he's very technical and has great jiu-jitsu, and he's a very, very good communicator, and I really enjoy seeing him. Fabio Santos. I mean, so many guys that really are just, they're opening up that book and becoming more and more comfortable doing what we're doing right now. And I think it's amazing, because those guys have such incredible knowledge to share. So I know that you kind of have to pick and choose and kind of figure out how to navigate, but just start looking up some of these guys that have red and black belts and watch some of the stuff they put out. It's not even just the techniques, because so much of the time when you're teaching and learning jiu-jitsu, it's really an art that's meant to be, and I think this was Hickson's point, is I need to be in front of this person I'm sharing this knowledge with. I need to look into his face, you know, see his character, feel, you know, and actually have him feel the techniques. That's always going to be the best transfer of knowledge when it comes to jiu-jitsu. Always. That's never going to change. This can be helpful, and of course there's a lot to be learned, but it almost takes a certain amount of knowledge and skill to be able to figure out what to pay attention to and what to watch. But yeah, it's as far as actual channels, I'm not sure. I don't know of too many of them that actually just have like a bunch of tech. You kind of have to just piece through it and see what's out there. But some of those guys, like, and I haven't even been, you know, on the mat. I mean, I've met most of those guys, but I've never been in an actual class with Marcel Stambowski, but I know a lot of guys who have, and he's, you know, very well respected. And there's so many guys like that. Man. Whew. Jacare, Fabio Jugel, I mean, those guys are... We're going to see how this works. Hopefully this does the job. Hopefully we're back. Okay.
Yep.
All right. So, sorry about that. But basically, he was staying a little bit further back. Okay? So, it might have not worked exactly like this at the time, but this is my recollection, so I'll have you on the top. So, when the knees come inside like this, okay, sometimes they drop the hips back a little bit further like this. So this is kind of where Zayden was. One thing you can do is when we get this knee in, you could only get about this far. You couldn't get your shin down, right? And so you got about here, but he was sitting back. One thing you can do is come up and grab your own foot, okay? Now, I like doing this. I've shared this only like one time, but a lot of times what they're trying to do is block your hips with their head, so their head is pushing the hips down, and then he wants to find a way to swim this arm back inside, okay? Now, come up on your knees a little bit more, okay? So when this happens, one of my favorite things to do, especially if I only have one side in, is to bring this foot up like this, trap here, and then drive this down, and at some point, even switch, come here, and I know this is not that comfortable, and then drive him over like this. And then you kind of end up in an upside down crucifix position. That was a little bit awkward and weird, but because she's never seen that before. But nonetheless, I do that a lot. And a lot, really at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is make space to, to get our legs back in the game, okay? So if we're having difficulty and they're sitting back, one thing you can do is shoot your hips like further that direction. So you can drop your feet back down. If you're not getting anywhere, let's go back into the north-south position. If your arms are here like this and you get the knees inside, if they're dropping back like this, now, and they're dealing with this, so shoot your hips back down a little bit further. So plant your feet on the floor, scoot your hips that way. Yes, good. Now re-enter. That's it. Very good. So you make a little bit more space so you can get your legs back inside. Okay? Another thing you can do, if they're down low like that and they're just holding, okay? I forget what they call this. This is it's kind of awkward at first, but it's sort of like a leg whip. Have I shown you this yet? I'll have you on the top. Okay? So you're gonna be north-south. Here like this. Okay? So if you have your forearms inside, and sometimes you can even grab the belt. Like, especially if the arms get stuck out like this. I don't like having my arms stuck out like this. I'd rather be on the inside of the arms here. But either way, this can still work. So even if my arms are stuck on the outside, I can stretch on the hips on the belt. So put your chest down. Okay? So they're doing a good job. I start whipping my legs like this. And I start creating momentum. And then a little bit more space, and then my legs come inside like this. Okay? So, sorry, did I roll over your wrist? Okay. You want to try that?
Make you look like a dork.
No judgment, it's your first time, right? So you're here, let's say you've got all this, you're trying to do this, and they're doing a good job of blocking the hips. So stretch here, okay? Now, there you go, that's it. If you can grab the belt, stretch both your arms. Now start swinging your legs. Yes, good. Swing, and then I'm gonna have to adjust, and then when you get an opportunity, you're gonna swing it. Yes, very good. And get the legs in anywhere you can, and then as soon as you get on the inside, you push away so you can create that space and put them back in the guard. So sometimes they may sit back, and you get in the end, and you invert so that you can spin back to face them. Yeah, any way we can get the legs in the game there. It's sort of a pendulum sort of motion. All right, Facebook is good. Thanks Fred. What'd Natalie say?
She said no judgment.
No judgment. That's it.
All right, so where were the other? There were some questions
up here.
Up there.
If you were going to purchase one book, what would that book be? Why? Is there a Gracie Combatives book that would be a good to drill techniques review? If I had one book to buy, it'd be Ellie Gracie's book. I pulled that out the other day, and we talked about that on the last video. So there's a couple book recommendations in there, Bergie, in that last video. Details for holding them out when you didn't pick up until later in life. Details for holding them out. Okay, so that is great question, David. Details for holding them out that you didn't pick up until later in life. Okay, so I think the biggest, let's see here. I think the biggest detail that I've learned, actually, it really, it wasn't even as much detail as it was concept. Two things made the biggest difference for me holding them out and developing a better mount position. Honestly, my ability to trap and roll and escape the mount, as well as hold the mount, increased at an exponential rate with two major influences. One was Hickson, Gracie, one was Huron. Okay, and the thing that Huron really kind of fortified for me in a lot of ways was not being overly committed to having to submit right away, but being more, prioritizing the control and staying in the position more so than having to finish. I think that is the biggest mistake that most people make. That it's one of the hardest things to overcome over time is prioritizing the control so often we have this time clock in our mind, like, oh, yeah, I gotta finish this person. I gotta finish here. I gotta do this. And when you're rushing, I think it was Gracie had a great quote about that. You rush to the finish, and you're gonna lose. I'm butchering it, but more or less, like the more you rush to finish, the easier it is for the person to escape. And so the main thing that I focused on here, and when I trained with Hickson really prioritized what he calls the middle point. Okay, and I don't have that much experience with him. A decent bit, and I've trained a decent bit with some of his better students. But what he calls the middle point is kind of just here, not having to be all the way up or not having to be all the way down, but being able to transition and be able to go into either one of those positions when it's necessary. So if the arm exposes itself, how to slide up into that higher mount and be able to finish, or being in this middle point where maybe I have to catch my base or she bridges and I'm able to go here, hook, and then come right back to my middle point and not have to be just like locking myself down. What you see with a lot of people, especially high level, not even high level, especially with competitors, is they want to stay super low and just have, just keep the control and smash. Well, when you're dealing with a time clock, that's a little bit, that kind of changes the philosophy a little bit, but I want this person to, I want them to cook themselves a little bit, right? And I want them to give me the submission. I don't want to, when I'm in the mount position, a lot of times I would, at first I would be very proactive. I'd be really focusing on the attack, and the next thing you know, I'm so focused on attacking the neck that they're able to escape, right? I lost my balance, or I'm not paying attention, and they're dragging the leg, and then they start the elbow escape. So when I started prioritizing a few things, it made a huge difference. Number one, the vast majority of jiu-jitsu players, their number one escape, and I guarantee everybody out there already knows the answer. If you get mounted, what's the first thing you're going to try to do? What's the first thing you're going to try to do?
Right now?
Yes.
I would bump.
Well, okay.
Because your hands are on me.
Okay, because my hands are on you. But what's the first thing you're going to do here? You're going to start an elbow escape, right? Now, for somebody to complete an elbow escape successfully or comfortably, they need to eventually get to their side to do a shrimp crawl, okay? Maybe not the first leg drag, but most of the time they're going to want to turn to their side, okay? So that's almost everybody's number one go-to move. And if you are rushing and you're trying to finish as they're doing their go-to move, they've got a better chance of escape. As opposed to, if I control her and I shut down her escapes, if I take away her number one escape, now she's forced to go to number two. And when you shut down number two, then they start to lose a little bit of confidence, right? And they start struggling a little bit more. And that's when they're going to start making mistakes. Okay, people feel like that. I got to get out. And if that person feels that way and they feel like they have to get out, good. Because all I need to do is control them. At some point, they're going to give me the submission. But all I need to do is control them, okay? The person I worry about the most is the guy who gets here and just like, boom. And just waits and is patient. Because I know, oh man, he's trying to set me up for his escape, okay? So, my main objective here, because most people, their go-to move is the elbow escape right away, is I manipulate their spine by way of their head. So if she starts to turn to the side, she buries this elbow, very simple. I can either put my hand in the collar, you don't like this already, all right? Because if you stay here, boom, free chokes, okay? Or I just bring her back flat, okay? Then she might try it on this side, and maybe I have to get a little bit lower, and I have to bring her head back this direction. You can't comfortably do an elbow escape if your head's twisted the other way. So my main objective is to keep their spine straight, okay? That's it. Shoulders flat, spine straight, because all they're left with is the bridge. Now, the bridge, everybody can do a bridge, right? It's so strong. I can put all my weight on Mandy. She's going to be able to bridge her hips up. So what I have to do is stabilize and deal with that when it comes, okay? And making sure that my base is good and I'm prioritizing that. So if I'm here and I start to attack, I don't want to off-balance myself something like this, okay? I don't want to bring myself past the center point, okay? I want to make sure I'm in a good base until I have the attack I want, and then I'm going to bring my body back down, okay? So keep the spine straight, shut down their first, second attempts, monitor, stay in this middle point, and get the best position you can to put a hook in if you need to, flatten them out, but just maintain the position. That's probably in patience, right? So it may take me longer to get to the finish, but if I'm in the mount indefinitely, I'm not losing the fight. So, and I think the mentality of most people when they go to the mount is very similar to what their mentality is in side control. Well, they're two very different positions. Side control, other than the fact that you're on the top, side control is very much a pinning position, okay? We want to keep them flat. We're using all of our weight. When you go to the mount, it has advantages for the fight, okay? Because you can sit up and you can strike. So I like developing the ability to sit up and do this with a collar, because if I can do this against a skilled opponent and not have to control like this, I can do this against a non-skilled opponent and still keep them out. So when you go to the mount position, I mean, the best guy I've seen from the mount position is like Hickson. If you watch the videos of him when he would mount people, like you name it, like those old Gracie in action videos or whatever, guys are bucking like crazy and trying to roll. I mean, but you look at him and he just has this floating ability, right? So when you're mounted on somebody, look at it less about smashing them. You're going to smash. I mean, you're going to use weight, but you want to use it strategically. Because at one point, you may have to put all your weight right there on that one lifting point, boom, and then come right back to the middle point, okay? So in a lot of ways, it's kind of like balancing on a stability ball or surfing, okay? You can't control the ocean, but you can ride on it, and you can keep your balance. So that's how I look at the mount position. I want to keep my board straight, right? And just balance and stay in that position, and then wait for the opportunity, okay? If that makes sense, I hope that, but those are the things. I know I kind of went a little bit deep into that, David, but I think that's the most important thing for me. It was a few technical things, a kind of a philosophical approach to being in a middle point, and the other part was just a strategic one, which is essentially just keeping that spine straight and being patient, right? Waiting on the right opportunity. So, all right. Let's see. We got a lot of questions here. I'm not sure which ones we're gonna.
On Facebook.
We don't have
YouTube.
a whole lot of time to, if we don't have time to cover the questions, we've got a few minutes left. If we don't have time to cover all the questions. Thank you, Mike Elkins. Yeah, I'm feeling really bad. I didn't do my half-mile lunges yesterday. Maybe I should do it today. But if we don't have time to get to your question, we'll come back and answer it next time. We'll be back here Tuesday. All right. Jeff Helton, good to see you, buddy. All right. Funny gym stories. Oh, man. Let's see here. Old School Valley Tudo was like. What was the training for? It was like, for example, for Valley Tudo. Okay, great question, Steven. So, do you know what Old School Valley Tudo was like and what the training for it was like? For example, Jiu-Jitsu for Valley Tudo. Yes. So, sorry, did not mean to come off strong. No, yeah, absolutely. So, thanks for the question, Steven, and thanks for tuning in, Jeff. Good to see you. So, funny gym stories. If I have time, I've got a few, but most of them were kind of, not so funny. But Old School Valley Tudo. Basically, that's kind of how we would train. Like, we trained the way that Helson and Hoist and all those guys taught us. So that's kind of how back when I first started, the only rules they had in the UFC, which is basically what they had in Brazil for the most part, was no biting, no eye gouging, right? And no gloves, any of that stuff. So, headbutts were allowed. You could fight somebody who was a lot bigger than you. It was a different world. So we had to train for all of that stuff. And for me, when I first started training, that's just how the training was. You did spar with the gi on. You did spar quite a bit. Like most of the technique that we did, we would do almost every class. We would start with a standing self-defense technique. It might be stick, it might be knife, it might be just a punch, headlock, whatever. And then we would do a series on the ground. And then depending on what we were covering that day, at least once a week, we would take the gi off. Okay, I'm not gonna embarrass myself today. You guys can watch my video about the no gi attire. But back in the day, you just took your gi top off, you wore your belt still, you had your gi pants on, and it was open hand slap. And then you would simulate the headbutts. Obviously, you can't headbutt each other in a safe way. So, so simulated headbutts, simulated elbows, all those hard strikes, like soft knees, soft kicks, things like that. So we could do it safely. But, it was always aiming for the head, trying to stay away from the eyes and things like that. But we'd always let each other know and try to be as realistic as possible. And that's basically how it was. Like, you start from the standing position, you start your striking situation. You try to a lot of the posture from and we're actually going to do a live video where we do all standing techniques. But the leg kick, the low leg kick, the pisau, I think is what they pronounce it. One of the best strikes that we have in Jiu-Jitsu. So that was used quite a bit to maintain distance and also to be able to close distance. So, but yeah, when I first started, there were people. Almost everybody that I trained with had come from another martial art, and most of them were standing martial art. So some guys from Taekwondo, karate, boxers, some wrestlers, but everybody else, they'd come from another martial art. So so there was a lot of standing, striking knowledge in the room. So that we got a chance to work against skilled practitioners and how to close the distance quite a bit. So that's the type of training that we did, and that's how that was taught to us, and I'm certain that's kind of how it was. I mean, they didn't really have MMA gloves back then, and there wasn't. Yeah, I mean, there may have been a few. I mean, but I think the first guy I remember actually wearing a pair of gloves like that, an open-handed pair of gloves like that, was Tank Abbott, like maybe UFC 6 or 7, something like that. And everybody's like, man, he's wearing gloves. And they were arguing about it, like, I don't know if they should allow that. Like, that was the argument. Like, I don't think we should allow that. That's all it does is protect the hand. That was the argument from the beginning for no gloves. I still agree with that. I would prefer to see it without the gloves, honestly, without the gloves, because it would change drastically the striking situation. And if you brought headbutts back into mixed martial arts, but it's not going to happen. But it drastically, I mean, every rule change. It creates an opportunity for more specialization, and it changes the art quite a bit. So I still like the old school Vale Tudo. I think there's more to learn. I think as far as self-defense is concerned, by watching some of those older videos, because you get to see how the art is applied against the most common, person out there, right? Which is somebody who's not as doesn't have jiu-jitsu knowledge, right? It's a technical art and skill that has to be learned properly. Now, a little bit of knowledge goes a long way. I mean, and you watch Chemo versus Hoist, a little bit of knowledge took that big monster a long way. So keep that in mind. I think it's all, yeah.
Edwin said that your evolution of the no-gi was how he found you in the first place. That's a good one. You haven't seen that one.
It's terrible. Full on chest hair and everything. I've scarred a few people with that.
So we've got a few more. I don't know how much time we have, but we can always start addressing these on Tuesday if we don't have time for all of them.
Yeah, we can definitely. There's one from Ed May. Do you use loop chokes? It's one of my favorites, but I find that I get overpowered. 43-year-old man, featherweight blue belt. So I would say this, Ed, as a featherweight, I think a loop choke is a fantastic weapon. I've been teaching them to her because I think they're really good. I've got a really good friend. Well, we have a couple of the smaller guys that trained at our academy. We had a featherweight actually who was just fantastic at the loop choke, even at blue belt. So I think it's a great technique for smaller people, especially because you're going to be able to fit in smaller spaces. So I've covered that with her, a couple different variations. But honestly, a lot of times it's just the threat of the loop choke. Sometimes we'll get the smasher to pop up away from your legs and give you more space. So like here, and I'll do this to her. Come up on your knees for me, okay? So I'll do this to her every now and then. Like if she starts up with this knee or something like this, I'll try to kick out one leg. to bring her head into range. And if I can get her head, boom, like this, and I want to put my weight on my shoulder here. So now even if she stands up, I'm with her, right? Okay, I can even come up with her, and then I can spin underneath. So I think it's a great weapon. Yeah, I like loop chokes a lot. I don't do them as very much. I like the cross collar chokes quite a bit more. But I think what she finds is that with that particular, I don't know, you can speak for yourself, but cross collar choke is hard to finish.
It's hard for me, yeah.
It's hard. Eventually she'll get better at it, but it's probably going to be more user-friendly at first against people her own size. My posture, my neck, you know what I mean? Like I can posture up pretty well. I got long arms and, you know, have some strength. But it's still, I think the cross collar choke is really, I mean, it's one of my favorites for sure. But the loop choke is a great weapon because if you can't untie that knot or break that grip and they're spinning underneath, right? As long as they have a decent grip, man, you know, it's a great weapon. I really like that a lot. And sometimes that's all you need is just to pop it down. It's super simple, and you stay sticky with it, and you might be able to use that a lot. So, all right. Well, I think that's good for the day. I think we're kind of coming towards the end of our time. Yeah, we went a little bit long today, so sorry guys. But sorry, we got some little children walking in.
One with no pants on.
Yeah.
We did water balloons.
Over that way, please. We have to go do water balloons. You got to stay over there.
In
Stay
a
over
little
there.
bit.
All right. So
Can we do water balloons?
Oh my goodness. All right, we're gonna go do water balloons apparently. So thanks for joining us, guys. And I'm just trying to run defense here, keep the naked baby off the mat. All right. Thanks everybody. Take care. We'll see you soon.